The sight of the horrific scene grips me by the core and shakes my heart violently within my chest. Just inside the cave lies a rotting and decomposed pile of bodies, limbs absent, eyes ripped from sockets, and each littered with missing chunks of flesh from their torsos. Broken rib cages and inner organs protrude from savage holes, gouged across their abdomens. The corpses lay in a pool of congealed blood, floating with fragments of hair and flesh. Maggots squirm into every orifice and feast on the remaining scraps. Their blood paints the lining of the walls a sickly crimson, and a wet-like sheen glimmers against the light of the moon. The sight knocks the wind from me, and a deep sickness sets within the base of my stomach. I gag violently, and my eyes begin to stream. My legs wobble, and fear infests my body. Folding at the waist, I firmly grip the middle of my thighs to try and regain some form of control. The images of the bodies rest behind my eyes, and the vision of their mutilated corpses imprints deeper into my mind. Panic setting in, I squeeze tighter and silently pray for salvation. Reaching out into blind faith, I rub the pendant hanging from my neck and hope that the Almighty's protection falls upon me. Slowly reclaiming control, I gulp down the vomit forming at the back of my throat and let out a quiet, deep sigh. Carefully dropping to my knees, I fumble through my bag, grab the small package and hold it gently in my palms. Unraveling strip by strip, I look upon the bloodied heart and check to make sure it's intact. It still quietly beats, pumping as if it remained in its host, the severed valves flexing back and forth. Raising from my knees, I turn my head towards the sky and stare directly into the pale moon above. The scene is set, and I am ready to face the beast that's plagued my dreams. Gritting my teeth and readying myself, I toss the heart towards the opening. The heart bounces a few times and slides along the surface of the snow before settling just short of the entry. A moment or two of deathly silence passes by, and the snow continues to fall, the tension only broken by the slight breeze whipping through the trees. The quiet feeds on my anxiety, and I become completely aware of my isolation, vulnerability, and helplessness. Unwanted shadows flit between the base of the trees, and each make me twitch uncontrollably. Pressure rising to its peak, I grasp my sword, raise it upwards, and prepare to meet my fate. A loud rumble echoes from the darkest depths of the cave, and the sound hits my soul. A deep, hellish roar is let loose, and blasts of force powerful enough to whip by and ruffle the edges of my large overcoat. The drum of heavy, labored footsteps grows louder with each step, and the vibrations shiver through my body. An otherworldly orange glow pulsates, wrapping around the edges of the cave, and casts a long shadow out onto the snow. The footsteps continue to grow louder. Fear ripples around my skin, and my stress levels fly through the roof. I begin to sweat and breathe unevenly as the tension continues to rise. Adrenaline shoots through my veins, forcing its way into my limbs, and I watch in awe as a grotesque silhouette appears at the entrance of the cave. My eyes continue to widen, my lips fall apart, and I feel the energy drain from within me. The monstrous beast lurches outwards and violently claws itself from its lair. Bones snapping, arms twisting, and flesh dripping from its body, it clears the cave roof and stands tall amongst the snowy clearing. The sight of the beast in its horrific glory forces me to take a few small steps backwards. Its colossal figure stands around 9 feet tall and is a mangled infusion of bones and flesh. Its skin is a deep, yellowy white, stained with the blood of its victims, and barely stretches over its bones. 2 powerful legs keep the beast upright and ignore the pain of mighty gashes and tears. Muscles pump and pulse as tendons struggle to pull against the sheer weight. Chunks of flesh drip from its body, almost liquefied, and slap harshly against the snow below. The missing limbs of the unfortunate souls are sewn awkwardly into its torso. Decaying arms and legs protrude from all sides, flopping and flailing aimlessly as the beast moves. Two main arms stretch beyond the human remains, and long razor-sharp claws dig into the snow. Atop the meld of flesh sits a mutilated head, acting as a focal point and guiding the beast forward. Where its mouth once sat, all that now remains is a swollen, mangled pair of lips, sealed together with pus and mucus from bursting sores. A single deep hole provides airflow, and sickly gargling sounds force their way through the opening. A stolen skull finds itself awkwardly inserted into the mound of flesh, eyes plucked from the sockets and replaced by two flickering, fiery red orbs. At the center, a black void swirls endlessly, darting back and forth within their burning cages. Locking eyes with the beast, a sudden aura befalls the clearing. Clouds block out the moonlight, and an unnatural darkness sets upon us. Time freezes, mirroring the icy floor below. Snowflakes pause in midair, and the swirling air itself ceases in an instant. The focal point of the beast snaps in my direction, and the burning flames lock my eyes into place. I frantically try to pull away my gaze, but my efforts are in vain, and I strain my neck to regain control. The beast uses momentum to swing its body to face my direction, and we stand both locked in place. Attempting to react and move my limbs, I feel a great power binding me in place, and I can just about twitch the end of my fingers. Before I have a chance to think about my options, the flame in the beast's eyes shoot a vibrant green, and the black voids expand. An extreme burning pain fills my head, and I scream internally. Images of unimaginable and inconceivable terror flash like fleeting thoughts, and I feel them start to infest my own memories. I desperately grasp onto any shreds of humanity I can locate within my own being. Yet all I sense is pure dread as a chilling voice starts to speak to me from within. Sir Talwyn's boots struck the stone floor with sharp, rhythmic echoes until ancient rock gave way to something softer and unmistakably wetter. His steps landed with a sickening squelch, and a deep shiver ran through his spine. He halted, one hand instinctively reaching for the blade at his hip, the other gripping his torch tighter. Trembling slightly, his shakes cast leaping shadows across the glistening walls. "What in the name of the old gods is this place?" he whispered, a quiver upon his lips. The walls pulsed faintly, subtle and slow, shimmering gently with a wet sheen. Veins of living roots, or something far fouler, crisscrossed every surface. They throbbed endlessly as though they carried life, and the very stone itself breathed. Tendrils, long and viscous like arteries carved from old flesh, stretched across the cavern walls and ceiling. As Talwyn stepped forward, they writhed beneath his boots, recoiling, twisting gleefully, tasting his presence. Pushing forward into the darkness, the sound of flesh pumping and writhing echoed along the passageway. Deep, painful moans grew stronger, and the lump of fear lodged in Sir Talwyn's throat grew larger. Navigating the twists and turns of a nightmare come to life, the meld of pain continued to rise, building slightly with each step and beckoning him onward. At the crescendo of suffering, an opening presented itself to Sir Talwyn, and he knew he must step forth. Creeping ever closer to the terror's core, the darkness consumed the light, chewing it up and swallowing it whole without thought. Trembling, scared, and alone in a world of agony, Sir Talwyn raised his torch reluctantly, brandishing it in the direction of a nearby wall. A strange feeling caught in his throat. His eyes widened in shock, lips parted in astonishment, and fear stirred deep within. His torchlight trembled and fell on a carved figure, half swallowed by the wall. In frantic fashion, he spins, twists, turns, and flails in panic, yet his actions bring no peace, with the full extent of the horror laid bare before his eyes. Bodies, upon countless bodies, emerge from the tendrils and root-like masses, frozen in contorted poses of agony, mouths open in silent screams, limbs twisted in the act of struggle. Humans, elves, sea folk, beasts of all shapes, and creatures no scholar had yet named, none had been spared from this hell. Hundreds, thousands, stared back at Sir Talwyn, their features too detailed to be sculpted, too perfect, and all too real. He stepped closer, hand trembling as he reached toward the nearest form. A woman, or what remained of one, face stretched in terror, eyes wide. The instant his fingers brushed the stone flesh, her corpse twitched in reaction, an uncomfortable, awkward, painful movement, followed by a low, guttural groan and sound of shattering bones. Sir Talwyn stumbled backward, torch flickering, flame stuttering as one arm broke free, groping outward and clawed at the air. Its twisted mouth moved, no breath, no sound, but he could still tell it begged for the end. "By the gods, they're alive," he breathed, horror thick in his voice. He lifted the torch once more and scanned the wall. His eyes fell on a creature, half-dragonid, adorned in glistening golden black plate, unrusted against time, and clung to the tendrils. Around its neck hung a rusted tag engraved with ancient script. He leaned close, heart thundering, his eyes searching in the darkness, the lick of the flames offering just enough to make out the words. "Night. Talwyn?" he gasped, his blood turning to ice. He moved quickly to the next shape, a tall, pale man with hollowed eyes. Another tag. The name struck like a blade, Brother Talwyn. Next, a ferocious canine-like humanoid, King Talwyn. Another, then another, again and again, all of them, all him. 100 versions of himself, twisted, altered, aged, mutated. Faces he'd never worn, and yet all familiar, staring back at him with silent desperation. He staggered backwards, surrounded by the terrible truth. They were all him. Different lives, different ends, all trapped here in this living tomb, fused to the walls of some ancient, pulsing, godlike organism. A prison outside time, and he had entered it willingly. The battle raged beneath a sky torn by lightning as the vile maiden rocked and screamed against the black waves. Boards cracked, sails were aflame, and the sea boiled with writhing shapes from the deep. The Krakken rose high above the mast, its tentacles slamming down like siege weapons, sending crewmen flying into the churning abyss. They were losing badly. Their gunpowder was spent, spellcasters dry of energy and blood. The deck ran red, one of their own already drowned. The rest staggered, barely standing. First Mate Jovus, cloaked in sea-worn robes, collapsed to his knees, his mind unraveling as he failed to bind the horrifying creature with his storm-silencing chant. The sigils around his hands flickered and died. Xandric, the wiry lizardkin sharpshooter, loosed a final bolt toward the beast's eye, only to watch a thrashing limb swat him like driftwood. He crashed into the deck rail, blood in his throat, vision dim. Now, only Rygal the Black remained standing. Captain, berserker, one eye burning with rage, the other long gouged out by coral in the thorned hill reefs. He stood alone, shield shattered, blade dull, bracing against the Kraken's relentless blows. From the deck, broken and bleeding, Xandric opened his eyes to behold death itself looming in the storm. Something glinted near the splintered helm, a flicker of absurd hope. A single golden doubloon, still slick with rum and blood, nestled near the shattered chest of Captain Woodgrim's hull. Xandric coughed a laugh. "Wondered when you'd come in handy." The cursed coin, once worn as a talisman beneath the corset of the Whore Queen, pulsed in his claws. With trembling strength, he hurled the coin toward the writhing maw of the Krakken. The storm seemed to hush. The coin spun through lightning and mist, swooping in a downwards motion like it was carried by fate itself. It struck true, clinking into the Krakken's open gullet, wedging into its pulsing throat, and in reaction, the beast reeled. Tentacles thrashed, mandibles snapping in panic. It clawed at its own gullet, choking, screeching in a voice older than tide and time. Regal did not hesitate. With a roar that split the heavens, he climbed the mast and hurled himself through the air, blade now wreathed in unnatural fire, lit by fury, faith, and finality. The cut came down like a god's judgment. The Krakken's head split, sea and sky bled, its limbs spasmed, curling inward before slamming to the deck, twitching in death. The crew fell silent, followed by howls of sea fiends, grief-stricken, feral, as they slipped back beneath the waves, retreating into the black. Yet the crew had no time to celebrate, because unbeknownst to them, this battle was far from over. The darkness pressed around Elira like a living thing, suffocating, sentient, wrong. She stood at the threshold of her front door, eyes straining into the land beyond where the stone path ended in gnarled trees. No wind, no sound, not even the insect hum of the summer dusk. She whispered the spell again, voice shaking. Ignira Lumen. Her fingers splayed, trembling over the carved glyph above the door. A sputter, a crackle, the old illumination ward flaring into life and casting a flickering halo across the yard, and there he sat. Spider, the bloodhound, still seated, still staring, unblinking. Elira's breath caught in her throat. Her knees buckled and she gripped the doorframe with bloodless fingers, the cold wood biting into her palm. For a moment, a single fragile heartbeat and relief. The nightmare receded. It's just Spider. She was still safe. The ward still held. Yet, although her mind spoke of safety, her heart screamed danger. Something sinister still lurked. Elira looked deep into her old companion's eyes, seeking reassurance, but all that remained was in dark emptiness. Spider, she called, her voice a rasp. Before the name fully passed her lips, the light died. Darkness slammed into her. A gust of decay-laced wind howled through the trees, followed by a sickening thud. A sharp rustling, not leaves, but something heavier, something wet. Something moved in the haze, no longer lurking at the wood's edge, no longer still. It lurched into motion with spasming, inhuman ticks. Its limbs, too long, too thin, jutted outward as it skittered across the ground in bursts, like a marionette tugged on knotted string. Black ichor dripped from its limbs, trailing behind it in slick, reeking lines. Its body twisted with every movement, bones snapping, joints rearranging themselves with sickening cracks. Elira screamed, falling backwards onto the stone floor, her foot catching a shattered pot. Her hand flew out to brace herself before crashing down into the jagged shards of porcelain. Pain lanced up her arm, hot and blooming, but there was no time to scream again. The thing came closer. It flailed as it moved, arms spidered wide, fingers splayed like they meant to peel her apart. Its head contorted, neck breaking and realigning in grotesque rhythm, jaw distended as if unhinged. She scrambled across the floor, blood, water, and bone meal from a fallen apothecary shelf smearing beneath her. Her legs refused to work properly. Her arms clawed at nothing. The glyph above the door sparked once, then again, flickering over and over. Each brief flash seared the creature into her vision as it grew closer each time. Her breath hitched, coming in broken gasps, her back meeting the far wall. There was nowhere left to go. The ward flashed once more, brighter than before, and in that last flicker of light, she saw it. saw the way it lunged, the way its fingers spread wide to grab her leg and pull her down into the black. Just as its shadow fell over the doorway, the glow buzzed and surged back into life, its harsh glow washing over the black outside. The figure was gone. She could finally rest, and to her relief, Spider stood just outside the door, his head tilted curiously, his tail wagging in slow, tentative arcs. The garden beyond the great hall had ceased to exist. Where once lay orchards kissed by twilight, now stretched a void, a cavernous, churning blackness that devoured the land whole. The ancient trees, gnarled and twisted, stood still as statues, etched in the faintest silver of moonlight. No wind stirred their bone-thin branches. No birds sang. The silence was so complete, it rang in her skull, pressing against her ears like invisible iron. Lyra hesitated on the threshold, her bare feet cold against the stone. Her breath misted in the air, though no wind stirred. "Thane," she whispered, the name barely more than a thought on her lips. Nothing. No twitch. No breath. Her heart quickened, a sudden jarring hammering in her chest. She stepped forward, each footfall cracking louder than the last across the cold flagstones. The black beyond the arch seemed to stretch with her movement, deepening, hungering. It wasn't absence, it was presence. Watching, waiting, breathing. "Thane," she whispered again, this time sharper, tighter, urgent. Still no reply. Something coiled in her stomach. Not fear, not yet, something older and much more cold. She reached out, slow, trembling fingers, inching toward his still form in the dark. Her fingertips brushed his arm, and in a flash, he moved, too fast, too sudden, too inhuman. His body turned not as a man does, but like a flailing puppet, controlled by an unseen master. He lurched toward her, seized by the unseen force. The air rushed around them with the suddenness of a breaking seal. Lyra froze as she saw his face. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. It was not her husband. The face had the shape of him, barely, but the skin was leached of life, stretched thin over bone and shadow. Veins pulsed beneath inky white flesh, twitching like worms beneath parchment. His jaw hung open, forced there, revealing not teeth but a gaping, endless hole, a void gnawing into the core of the world. Blackness spilled from it, not smoke, not shadow, something deeper, something alive and starved. His lips peeled back grotesquely, cracked and bleeding, framed an impossible maw. A mouth that didn't end, a mouth that wanted, and his eyes that had been devoured, replaced by glistening orbs of pearled fog, slick and wet, rolling unnaturally in their sockets. No pupils, no iris, only a milky sheen reflecting things behind her that weren't there. Things moving, things smiling. The skin around them was a shade of purple-black, as if the orbs had been shoved inward with force, bruised and tortured. Lyra's knees quaked. This was not Thane. This was a vessel, a skin wrapped around something ancient and ravenous. She could not scream. She could not move. The truth slammed into her chest like a mace. He had opened the gate. He had let it in, and in the heartbeat of stillness that followed, as the world around her held its breath, it screamed. The sound split the air, cracked stone, shattered glass. It ripped through her mind like hot iron. It was not pain, it was hunger, bared and unleashed, and it had finally found her.